Good morning, everybody. Minister Tom here, and I'm going to continue today talking about what Jesus did this week. Very famous week, the Holy Week prior to his death and final resurrection. Jesus was very busy today, this Tuesday, before his death. He taught primarily all day long in the temple, and that brought up much ire against the Sadducees and the Sadducees. He taught many stories and some parables, all of which you should remember from your days reading your Bible. What annoyed the religious leaders mostly was that he was healing people. As you recall, only the Messiah could heal people, and they had no belief that Christ was the Son of Man, the Son of God, and that he had the power to heal. At any rate, he taught the parable of the Great Supper, the good and wicked servant, the 10 virgins, and the 2 sons, as well as the owner of the vineyard, the story of the wedding banquet, and the 10 talents. Now, if you want to look these up, you can do so by reading Matthew chapter 21, verses 23 through 29, Mark chapter 11, 20 through 21, and then verse 44. You can also read it in Luke chapter 20, verses 1 through 24, and lastly in John chapter 12, verses 20 through 50. Jesus declared the greatest commandment, and we all know this one pretty well. He said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, as your neighbor as yourself." This is written in Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. It's almost as if that was the golden rule. Jesus also looked up at one point, and he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. That was very common in those days, knowing that under the law, everyone paid tribute to the temple, basically to keep it running, and so that the priests had something to live on. But then, while he was there, he saw a poor widow woman. She had 2 very small copper coins that she did put into the treasury. And what he said after that was profound. He said, "I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of the other people." Said these others gave gifts out of their wealth, while this woman gave her gift out of her poverty. And that was all that she may live on. Now let's look at that for a moment. What Jesus was saying was the rich, they had plenty of money, and what they gave to the church was just fine. It didn't hurt them, it didn't change their lifestyle. But the poor widow woman gave everything that she had. Virtually, she had nothing after giving to the temple. The rich could go on living, feeding themselves, taking care of business. However, the poor widow woman had absolutely nothing. She may not have eaten that day, may not have eaten for days afterwards. She may have given everything that she had to the temple. So Christ criticized those of the rich and those who ran the temple for taking the money of the widow woman, who probably should have been given money from the temple through the rich. Very important concept that we today still follow. It was then that the Sadducees tried to trap Christ into an economic issue about Roman taxes. Jesus said in his famous line, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God. We talk about that a great deal. In fact, I could tell you I use that statement fairly often. You can read about it in Mark chapter 12, verse 17. You can read it in Luke chapter 20, in verses 20 through 26. At that point in time, he astounded and shocked the Jewish leaders with his wisdom. At that point, they never ever tried to trap Jesus in an economic way ever again. Another thing that was important that day was Jesus' description to his disciples of his prediction of his coming death and resurrection. The disciples had no idea what Christ was talking about. They thought Christ would live on just as they would live till the end of their lives, and that the ministry would go on and on and on, and the teaching would never end. But Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives, looking over Jerusalem. He wept as he contemplated the coming destruction of the city of Jerusalem. This is described in Matthew chapter 24. What did Jesus actually mean? Was he talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, the city? Or was he talking about him leveling the city when he died and was resurrected? I think it more was that of the latter, since the destruction of Jerusalem did not come for many years afterwards. As we know, there are many signs that man has looked at as signs from God, that being earthquakes and hurricanes, landslides, avalanches, droughts, pestilence, and of course disease. All of these things have happened to us in modern times. I could just go back to the last 4 years and we could talk about a pandemic. We could talk about the multitude of hurricanes and earthquakes across this planet. We could also talk about the number of unexplained deaths that have taken place. Well, Christ said that evening, there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity as the roaring and tossing of the seas. People will then faint from terror, apprehensive of what was coming onto the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. When these things take place, he said to stand up with your heads looking upward, because your redemption is drawing near. If you'd like to read more about that passage, I urge you to read Luke chapter 21, verses 25 through 28. It explains it in great detail. Let's bring that forward to the book of Revelation. Book of Revelation is a very complex book to understand. The symbolism is tremendous. I, in fact, have taken Bible studies on the book of Revelation several times, and I learn something new every single time. I urge you, if you've not already done so, take a Bible study or two on the book of Revelation, because the symbolism is everything. It has been described that when Christ returns, He will return, coming through the clouds, wearing white. The earth will tremble. The earth will have storms. There will be pestilence. There will be fighting amongst men, and those who are believers will be looking up, seeing Christ come down from heaven to earth. At that point, we Christians who have been saved and will be resurrected as Christ has, will be joyful, because Christ will then take on the evil one, defeat him, and begin his 1,000-year reign here on earth. These are all very important words, and I urge you to review the video and to review the book of Revelation to understand it clearly. Once again, save this video for later if necessary. Take a look at the verses I discussed and see what you think about them. As always, I'm very, very thankful for you to see this video, and I ask that you follow and subscribe to this channel. Please give it a thumbs up. Those algorithms in those nasty, nasty computers tell the world that this is important information to be sent out far and wide. Not only you who see the video and have followed this page will see it, but also others who are new to what I am saying in my videos will then get to see it, and hopefully they will also follow and subscribe, and they will like them too. Please, friends, share the videos. If you're a Christian, I urge you to share these videos. Maybe other Christians who are on the fence, or so-called Christians who only show up to church on Christmas and on Easter, will learn something and become more devoted to Christ and to his church. Maybe they will learn that we live under the new covenant, whereby we no longer live under the law as the Jews do and still do to this day, and that God made the new covenant because of Christ's death, and that we are different from the ancient Jews. Again, thank you very much for seeing the video. Please comment below. Let me know what you have to think. Tell me what you want me to speak about. It's very important. I read each comment, and as I see them, I look them up, do some research, and if I find that they're interesting enough to broadcast, I'll use your information, your advice, and I may give you credit for it as well, because everyone knows, including God himself, I am certainly no genius. I look everything up. Again, friends, until next time, this is Minister Tom. Thank you for being here, and we will meet again.